Do you ever get overwhelmed? Hi, this is Cedar from Cedar Sacred Well. This video is an excerpt from a recent group coaching call where I talk about the true cause of overwhelm and how to deal with it. It's not always about doing less, it's often more about our nervous system's capacity. So I'll talk about ways of dealing with stress and overwhelm that actually expand your capacity so you're able to do more instead of having to make your life smaller. What is overwhelm? How can we engage with that? Typically, so overwhelm is just our nervous system, our emotions saying, this is too much. This is more than my current capacity. And how that hits you might be different. It might hit you as like kind of a frantic energy of like, I've got to do all the things, kind of running around and like trying to manage it all. Or it might hit you as I just can't do anything. I'm just gonna scroll on my phone or turn on the TV or eat some ice cream and just do nothing at all. Can anybody recognize those nervous system states? Right? Yeah, I just described two nervous system states. So, what is overwhelm? It's activation. And we get activated often when we are trying to do more than our capacity can hold. And capacity, I don't want to talk about too much right now because I'm about to run a 4-week class on this, but it's something that's like very, very alive for me right now. So I kind of can't help it. But we need to build our capacity and also take out some of the things that are too much, right? So there's ways of reducing our load, whether it's, you know what, that's laundry room hasn't been cleaned for a year and no one's died, so I guess it can wait another 6 months and that'll be fine, just allowing some of those things to slide that you would like to get done but aren't actually critical. There's also internal pressures. I'm going to talk a bit about like suppressed emotions and how that can add to our overwhelm and take up a lot of capacity in a little bit when I get to the emotions piece. But that's always something to take a look at is there something I'm avoiding feeling? Is there something I'm angry about or grieving or, whatever it is that I could set aside some space and time to engage with and release a little bit of that pressure. Other types of stressors, we've talked about in other contexts of how can I support myself by relieving some of the pressure on my nervous system. That could be emotional pressure, it could be physical, it could be a lot of different things. Am I drinking enough water? Just some of those like basic stuff too, right? And then we also want to grow our capacity at the same time because there will always be things that create discomfort in our lives, hopefully, unless your life is just like really, really small and really boring. There's going to be something in your world that's creating some kind of friction, stress, or discomfort. So if we can meet that in a good way, it can actually build our capacity and make it so that we're able to do more things and hold more types of discomfort and stress without it completely blowing us out and getting into those dysregulated patterns. So the way we do that is by creating safety. And it's what I've been talking about this whole time is like, how do we create safety? I've given you a lot of somatic tools for that. And I came up with this capacity compass. So if you can see that on the right side, the capacity compass, I put agility, acceptance, awareness, and attunement. And the agility piece is really your regulation. It's all your regulation practices. And awareness is kind of the other side of regulation of, is this appropriate? Like we were talking about earlier, is my response matching the moment? how do I match my response to the moment? And then the attunement and the acceptance is where we kind of practice some of that stress and creating safety within an experience that is challenging in some way, whether that's positive or negative, right? Because we could be having a really positive experience that still like blows us out or is too intense, or, you know, is just too much. Like right now I'm trying to plan my backpacking trip and start a small business, which are both really great things and also a lot. So how do I practice being with the discomfort of these big, huge goals and my, you know, finite time and the size of my current capacity, which of course is a lot bigger now than when I was sick, but is still something that I'm actively working on growing. So I think, you know, I think you get the idea of like, these are some different ways that you can start to approach this. And as we build capacity, we're less likely to get overwhelmed because we can handle more. But also, when we do get overwhelmed, we kind of know where to go with that. Looking for the emotions, looking for what can I take off my plate, all those sorts of things, and how do I support myself and create some safety in the midst of this. Registration is open now. You can sign up on the page. I'll send the link. Yeah, I would honestly love to have all of you in that group, and that's my little pitch. I just had a call earlier today with someone who was like, I'm learning all these recovery things, but I'm too overwhelmed to put them into practice because what do I even do? I think that's often kind of a paralysis point that we get to. And sometimes overwhelm can be a little bit of an out of like, oh, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm not going to do it. Like, cause that sounds hard. That sounds scary. Right. So being honest with ourselves, if that is part of what's going on, of like, am I just trying to avoid the things that I actually know I need and that would be good for me, by kind of taking refuge in like, I don't even know. So that's one thing, but yeah, I mean, it's true. Like if you tried to follow every piece of advice from every recovery person all the time, you wouldn't even have the hours in the day. So we have to kind of we have to pick and choose. And I've found that having a soft structure, like a gentle structure, is really supportive for this sort of thing. So what's my morning routine? What do I do before I go to bed? What do I make sure that I'm doing every afternoon? Just taking those like little moments of the day, maybe it's just 15 minutes on each of those, or maybe you're able to do 30 minutes or an hour. Like that is great. If you do more than that, awesome. But just doing that is great, as long as you're getting some kind of somatic moment in those few times during the day. And those practices are what helps you with the agility and the attunement and like, you know, all those things. And just noticing when stuff comes up, like, you know, emotion wanted to come up and chose attunement in that moment and practiced attunement in that moment. That builds capacity. So it's kind of, yeah, like meeting yourself in the moment rather than I need to create this big long to-do list of recovery things, but just making sure that you have those kind of like rocks through your day that you know that you can count on, that I always at least get this. And if I get more, bonus, great. Does that make it feel a little more manageable? I think it relates to capacity in that, like, if you know that having three things is like well outside of your baseline, and is not in your capacity, then it's okay to try to avoid doing those things, but sometimes they're just going to happen, right? Like, okay, maybe I'll do two and I can bump this one next week or something like that, just to give yourself a little more grace. But sometimes, you don't get to control the schedule of stuff and when doctors are available, and that's just how it ends up being. So there's two pieces. There's the brain retraining piece where you're borrowing trouble from the future, right? Like you're living in the worst case scenario, and like we're creating secondary suffering, like we talk about in the 5 keys program, of there's actually nothing wrong happening right now. Like right now you're fine. You're just in your house chilling, and these problems haven't even happened yet and may never happen. So maybe doing an orienting practice of like, okay, where am I right now? I am safe. There's nothing trying to eat me. Doing something like that, and when you notice those thoughts, either doing a somatic practice like that, or you could take a brain retraining route of, I'm going to instead imagine the best case scenario. Instead of like thinking about, oh, and then I'm gonna feel like this and it's gonna be so bad, just imagining like, and then I get home and I feel fine and I go for my walk, and rehearsing like the positive, you know? Yeah. So that's what I would suggest for that. And I know that that is a challenge for sure. So.
The Capacity Compass is a 4-week group coaching program where we will learn to build our capacity with somatic tools and nervous system work. Registration is open now.